February 19, 1945, 0900 hours. The black sands of Iwo Jima tremble under the thunder of naval guns. You're hunkered in a spider hole, the acrid stink of sulfur choking your lungs, your Type 99 rifle clutched like a lifeline. The horizon erupts in fire, American battleships, cruisers, destroyers pounding the island into oblivion. But through the smoke, you see them, landing craft slicing the waves, disgorging waves of khaki-clad figures. Marines. Not the army grunts you've crushed before. These are the devil dogs, the ones whispered about in foxholes from Guadalcanal to Tarawa. And as the first boot hits the beach, you know, this fight will be different. This fight will be hell. Private First Class Hiroshi Tanaka grips his Arasaka tighter, his heart slamming against his ribs. The air vibrates with the whine of incoming shells, each explosion sending geysers of volcanic ash skyward. He's been here for months, fortifying this godforsaken rock under Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi's iron command. Caves honeycombed into Mount Suribachi, pillboxes camouflaged in the jagged terrain, every inch designed to bleed the invaders dry. But these aren't just invaders. They're United States Marines, the corps forged in the fires of amphibious warfare, trained to storm beaches where no sane man would tread. The first wave hits the shore. You can almost hear the sergeants barking orders over the roar. Move, move, secure the beachhead. Leathernecks, tough, wiry men from farms in Iowa, streets of Brooklyn scramble up the incline, M1 Garins at the ready. Mortar rounds rain down from hidden Japanese positions, shredding the sand into bloody craters. A young corporal, Eugene Sledge, ducks behind a half-sunken Amtrak, his flamethrower strapped to his back like a demon's burden. He's with the 1st Marine Division, the old breed, veterans of Peleliu's carnage. They don't flinch, they advance. Tanaka squeezes the trigger. His bolt-action rifle cracks, dropping a Marine mid-stride. But for everyone that falls, 3 more surge forward. No hesitation, no retreat. That's what sets them apart. These Marines fight like they're possessed, driven by a doctrine that demands total commitment. In the Imperial Japanese Army, Bushido demands death before dishonor, but these Americans, they turn survival into an art of aggression. Flame units torch bunkers alive, bar gunners lay down suppressive fire with mechanical precision. And the close-quarters brawls, bayonets clash in the sulfur pits, ka-bar knives slashing throats in the dim light of tunnels. Why did the Japanese come to dread them so? It wasn't just the firepower. The army might bombard from afar, the navy shell from the sea, but Marines, they came ashore, boots on the ground, to take and hold. They embodied the American way, relentless, adaptive, unforgiving. In earlier campaigns like the Solomons, Japanese commanders noted the difference. Army units could be outmaneuvered, flanked, starved out. But Marines, they dug in like ticks, counterattacked with ferocity that bordered on madness. Back on the beach, chaos reigns. Colonel Harry, the horse Liversedge, leads his regiment forward, his voice cutting through the din like a whip. Push inland, don't let up. A Japanese machine gun nest chatters from a concealed emplacement, mowing down a squad. But then comes the response. A Marine bazooka team, PFC Franklin Sousley and his loader, blasting the pillbox into rubble. Sousley, a Kentucky boy with a grin that hides the terror, reloads without missing a beat. You feel the shift. The invaders aren't breaking. They're breaking you. Deeper in the defenses, Sergeant Shoichi Yak watches from his observation post. He's heard the stories from survivors of Guadalcanal, how Marines would charge bands of attacks head-on, turning suicidal rushes into slaughterhouses. They fight like animals, one veteran had whispered, eyes hollow. No fear of death, only hunger for victory. Yake signals his mortar crew, fire for effect. Rounds arc down, blasting craters amid the advancing lines. Yet the Marines adapt, using the craters for cover, leapfrogging squads with textbook precision. Imagine the heat, the sun baking the ash, sweat mixing with blood under heavy packs, the stench of cordite and charred flesh. Every step forward costs lives, but the Marines pay it. Why? Because their training at places like Paris Island instills something unbreakable, esprit de corps. They're not just soldiers, they're brothers in arms, forged in mud and drill. Japanese troops, bound by emperor and honor, respected that bond, but it terrified them. In reports back to Tokyo, officers like Kuribayashi wrote of the Marines' fanatical determination, how they refused to yield ground even when outgunned. As the day wears on, the beachhead expands. Tanaka's position is overrun. He fixes his bayonet, heart pounding, ready for the end. But the Marine who bursts in isn't a giant, just a wiry private with eyes like steel. A burst from his Thompson submachine gun ends it. No glory, just efficiency. That's the Marine way: kill or be killed, then move on. By nightfall, the invaders hold a fragile toehold. Casualties mount, over 2,000 Marines down in the first day alone, but they've come ashore, and in the flickering light of flares, Japanese defenders whisper among themselves. These aren't the soft Americans of propaganda. These are warriors who match Bushido with their own code. Semper Fidelis, always faithful, to the mission, to each other. What horrors await in the caves ahead? What makes these men so unbreakable that even the Empire's finest tremble? February 21, 1945, 0400 hours. The northern slope of Mount Suribachi. A cold drizzle hisses on the volcanic rock as Private First Class Donald Rule crawls forward on his belly, wire cutters in his teeth, a satchel charge slung over his shoulder. Behind him, the rest of his fire team from K Company, 3rd Battalion, 28th Marines, wait in the darkness like ghosts. Their mission: silence the heavy machine gun that has pinned down 2 platoons since dusk. One wrong sound and the mountain will come alive with fire. Rule reaches the first strand of barbed wire. Snip. The metallic click is swallowed by the wind. Snip. Another. Then the ground beneath him erupts. A Japanese Type 93 mine detonates with a dull thud, flinging his body 10 feet through the air. Miraculously, he lands alive, both legs shredded, blood pulsing into the black sand. His buddies drag him back under a hail of tracers. He will die before sunrise, but the gap he cut stays open, and through it the Marines pour. This is the meat grinder. This is where the myth hardens into terror. In Tokyo, Imperial General Headquarters receives frantic radio messages from Iwo. The enemy advances even when every man should be dead. They do not stop. Kuribayashi himself cables. The Americans on this island are not the same as those we fought before. Their assault troops possess a special ferocity. That special ferocity has a name the Japanese learned to spit like a curse: U.S. Marine. They have already seen the difference on Guadalcanal, where the 1st Marine Division refused to break even when starved, diseased, and outnumbered. They felt it on Cape Gloucester, where Marines waded waist-deep through swamps under torrential rain, smiling while they killed. They bled for it on Peleliu, where the 1st Marines lost 70% of their strength in 2 weeks yet never yielded an inch. But Iwo Jima is the crucible. Here, the Japanese have built the perfect trap. 22,000 men sealed inside a fortress of interlocking caves, tunnels, and concrete blockhouses. Kuribayashi's orders are explicit. No banzai charges, no wasteful suicide rushes. Bleed them. Make every yard cost 100 lives. Turn the island into a slaughter pen. And for a while, it works. Marine Lieutenant Keith Wells leads his platoon up a slight rise now known as Charlie Dog Ridge. Halfway up, a hidden 47 anti-tank gun fires point blank. The shell tears through 3 men at once, painting the rocks red. Wells keeps moving. A Nambu machine gun opens up from a cave mouth no one saw. Another 5 men drop. Wells throws a grenade, charges the aperture, and jams his .45 into the darkness, emptying the magazine. When the smoke clears, the gun is silent, but Wells is on his knees, gut shot. He refuses evacuation. "Keep going," he gasps. "Take the ridge." They take it. At the cost of every officer and half the enlisted men in the platoon. Japanese defenders watching from higher ground cannot believe their eyes. Lieutenant Toshihisa Koyama, a company commander, scribbles in his diary that night, "These Marines do not behave like human beings. When their leaders fall, the men simply choose another and continue the attack. There is no panic, no hesitation. They fight as if death is irrelevant." That is the secret the Japanese are only now beginning to grasp. Marines are trained to expect annihilation and attack anyway. At Paris Island and San Diego, drill instructors have screamed it into them since 1942. You do not fight for your life. You fight for the man on your left and right. The mission comes first, always. The Imperial Army trains men to die gloriously. The Marine Corps trains men to win. no matter how many have to die doing it. And on Iwo, the bill comes due. By the end of the first week, the 4th and 5th Marine Divisions have suffered more casualties than they inflicted on D-Day at Tarawa, a battle once considered the bloodiest in Corps history. Medics work in the open, ignoring sniper fire. Corpsmen like pharmacists made second-class William Kaiser sprint from body to body, morphine syrettes flashing in the sun, until a Japanese sniper puts a round through his heart. Another corpsman simply takes his place. In the Japanese command cave under Hill 362A, Colonel Takeshi Kanji slams his fist on the map table. They are not stopping. We have killed thousands and still they come. His intelligence officer, Captain Sunizo Wada, quietly replies the words that will haunt every survivor. Sir, these are not soldiers. They are something else. Night falls. Flare ships offshore turn the battlefield into a flickering orange hellscape. The Marines dig in among the dead, sharing K rations with corpses for elbow room. Somewhere in the darkness, a Japanese soldier crawls out to retrieve a fallen comrade and finds himself face to face with a Marine doing the same. For one frozen second, two exhausted boys stare at each other across a crater. Then both raise their weapons. The war grinds on. And deep inside the mountain, General Kuribayashi begins to write the letter he knows he will never send home. A letter that admits the unthinkable. We may defeat the American Army. We may defeat the American Navy. But these Marines, I do not know if we can defeat these Marines. But tomorrow, the flag will rise on Suribachi, and everything will change again. February 23, 1945, 10:20 hours, the summit of Mount Suribachi. Sergeant Michael Strank, Corporal Harlan Block, and 4 other Marines wrestle a length of iron pipe through the whipping wind. In their hands is a stars and stripes found aboard a sunken LSD, small, almost fragile against the volcanic cone that has become a butcher's block. They lash it to the pipe with bootlaces and twine, then they plant it. Far below, on the beaches and in the shell-pocked flats, thousands of helmeted heads turn upward at once. A roar rises, raw, ragged, half-sob, half-scream. Men who have not cheered in days throw their helmets in the air. Ship horns blare from the fleet offshore. For one impossible minute, the war stops. But inside the mountain, the reaction is very different. Lieutenant Toshihisa Kayama watches through field glasses as the red and white Hinamaru is torn down and replaced by the hated banner. His hands tremble. Around him, seasoned veterans, men who laughed at death on the beaches of Singapore and the jungles of New Guinea, stare in stunned silence. The flag is not just cloth, it is a declaration. The southern anchor of the island is lost. The artillery spotters on Suribachi are blind, and worse, far worse, it is a psychological sledgehammer. Kuribayashi's voice crackles over the field telephone from his northern command cave. The enemy flag flies on the mountain. This is unacceptable. Counterattack immediately. But every officer knows the truth. There are no reserves left to throw at Suribachi. The garrison that once numbered 22,000 is already bleeding out in hundreds of separate cave fights, and the Marines are coming north. That afternoon, the real killing begins. The terrain turns demonic, a moonscape of jagged craters, sheer cliffs, and ravines choked with bodies. Hill 362A, the meat grinder proper, Hill 362B, Turkey Knob, the amphitheater, each a separate inferno. The Japanese have turned every fold of ground into a death trap. Hidden 75 guns fire down ravines at point-blank range. Knee mortars lob explosives into clusters of men with mechanical precision. Spigot mortars hurl 300-pound shells that land like freight trains. Yet the Marines keep climbing. Captain William T. Ketchum, commanding Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 24th Marines, reaches the base of Hill 362A on the morning of the 25th. Of his original 130 men, 32 are left. He looks at them, filthy, bandaged, eyes sunken, and simply says, "Let's go get the rest of it." They fix bayonets and walk uphill into a wall of fire. Japanese defenders see them coming and cannot believe it. Private First Class Masa Takahashi, manning a Type 96 light machine gun in a coral cave, squeezes the trigger until the barrel glows red. The belt runs dry. He reloads. The Marines are still coming. 30 yards, 20. He throws the empty ammo box, grabs his rifle, and fires until the bolt locks open. 10 yards. A Marine grenade arcs into the embrasure. Darkness. When the smoke clears, Takahashi is the only one still breathing in that cave. A Marine sergeant steps through the hole, Thompson at the hip. Takahashi raises his hands. The sergeant lowers the muzzle and moves on, hunting the next position. Takahashi sits in the dark, surrounded by the bodies of his squad, and begins to cry without sound, not for fear of death, but for the realization that these men will not stop until every cave is empty or every Marine is dead. By March 1, the pattern is set in blood. Marine attacks go like this. A platoon, sometimes only a squad, moves forward under a walking barrage of naval gunfire and 75 MPAC howitzers fired over open sights. When the shells stop, the Marines rise and walk into the teeth of whatever is left. Flamethrower teams led by men like Corporal Herschel, Woody, Williams crawl forward alone, roasting bunkers while bullets snap around them. Demolition squads follow, stuffing 40-pound crates of TNT into cave mouths and touching them off. Then the riflemen go in to clear the tunnels with pistols, knives, and bare hands. The Japanese fight with a desperation that borders on the supernatural. Wounded men strap explosives to their bodies and lunge at tanks. Snipers tie themselves into trees and fire until shot out like crows. But nothing slows the advance more than a few hours. In one cave complex near the village of Nishi, Lieutenant Junji Kuchai commands 120 men. They hold for 3 days against the entire 9th Marines. When ammunition runs out, they fix bayonets and charge downhill into the American lines. Only 8 survive the night. Kuchai is not among them. His last radio message, intercepted by Marine intelligence, is chilling in its simplicity. Marines are not human. They are demons wearing green. Tell the Emperor we tried. By March 9, the island is cracked open. The 3rd Marine Division lands fresh to finish the job. Japanese resistance collapses into isolated pockets of diehards. Kuribayashi himself disappears into the northern caves, still directing by runner and wire. And in those final nights, the stories that will haunt Japanese veterans for the rest of their lives are born. Stories of Marines who walk through machine gun fire as if it were rain. Of wounded men who refuse morphine so they can keep fighting. Of teenagers from Ohio and Texas who laugh while they burn you alive with napalm because the sooner we kill them all, the sooner we go home. One captured Japanese naval officer, Lieutenant Mamoru Shigemitsu, is questioned by Marine intelligence. He is asked why his men fear Marines more than Army troops or any other enemy they have ever faced. He answers without hesitation, because the Army fights to occupy. The Marines fight to destroy. They do not want your land, they want your soul. The flag still flies on Suribachi, and now the end is near. But in the darkness of the last caves, something even more terrifying than death is waiting. March 16, 1945, 0200 hours, northern Iwo Jima. The island is a smoking ruin under a moonless sky, but deep inside a labyrinth of tunnels hacked through volcanic rock, General Tadamichi Kuribayashi still lives. Around him, fewer than 1,500 men remain, ragged, starving, black with sulfur dust. Their uniforms hang in tatters, eyes sunken, yet every one of them clutches a weapon. Rifles with 1 bullet left, bayonets, bamboo spears, even rocks. They are waiting for the Marines to come underground, and the Marines oblige. Staff Sergeant John Basilone, the Medal of Honor hero from Guadalcanal, would have led the way if a Japanese mortar hadn't taken his head off on D-Day. In his place now are men forged in the same mold. Quiet, methodical killers who have learned that the only way to end this nightmare is to descend into the earth and drag the enemy out piece by piece. The technique is brutally simple and soul-destroying. A 4-man team, flamethrower operator, demolition man, rifleman, and shotgunner, crawls into a cave mouth no wider than a foxhole. Behind them, a runner waits with a field telephone wired back to a Sherman tank idling topside. Tank 75 is loaded with white phosphorus rounds, ready to seal the tomb if things go wrong. Inside, the darkness is absolute. The air is thick with the stench of rotting flesh and human waste. You can hear them breathing, hundreds of them, somewhere deeper in the tunnels. Corporal Tony Stein, already a Navy Cross winner for single-handedly destroying pillboxes with a reclaimed aircraft machine gun, takes point today. His team moves on hands and knees, feeling their way along the damp walls. Every few yards they stop, listen, then whisper the count. 3, 2, 1, burn. The flamethrower belches a 30-foot tongue of liquid fire. For one horrifying second, the tunnel is lit orange and the Marines see them. A wall of Japanese soldiers packed shoulder to shoulder, faces gaunt, eyes reflecting the flames like cornered wolves. Screams echo as men turn into living torches, running deeper or collapsing in flaming heaps. Then the counterattack comes. Out of side passages they swarm, officers with swords, enlisted men with spears, even wounded dragging themselves forward with grenades clenched in their teeth. The shotgunner fires again and again, the muzzle flash strobing like hell's lightning. Brass casings clink off rock walls. Someone screams, "Grenade!" and the world tilts sideways. When the runner outside hears nothing but static, he gives the order. The Sherman's cannon roars. White phosphorus shells pump into the cave mouth, turning the air into burning poison. The mountain itself seems to sigh as the tunnel collapses. This happens dozens of times a day now. Hundreds of caves, thousands of men. Japanese survivors who make it out, the handful who surrender, tell the same story to interrogators. We were ready to die. We were not ready for them to come into the darkness with us. They follow us even into hell. They do not fear the dark. They bring fire with them. One Marine, Private First Class Jacqueline "Jack" Lucas, only 17 years old, will earn the Medal of Honor in one such cave when he throws himself on 2 Japanese grenades to save his squad. He lives barely with 250 pieces of shrapnel in his body. When asked later why he did it, he shrugs through the morphine haze. Somebody had to. That is the final, unanswerable difference. The Imperial Japanese soldier is taught that death is the ultimate duty, that to die for the emperor is the highest honor. The Marine is taught something colder, that the mission is the only thing that matters, and if you have to crawl through fire and corpses to finish it, you crawl. In the last week of March, Kuribayashi gathers his final staff in a chamber lit by a single candle. Ammunition is gone. Food is gone. Hope was never issued. He burns his battle flags, destroys his code books, and dictates a final message to Tokyo. The enemy's combat power is extremely high, especially the Marines. They attack without regard for life. Tell the people of Japan we fought to the last man. Then he writes a personal letter to his son. I have no regrets, but these Marines, they are a different kind of soldier. I have never seen men fight like this. If our country is to survive, we must never fight them on the beaches again. On the night of March 26, the remnants, about 200 men, make their final banzai charge near Airfield No. 2. They come screaming out of the darkness with swords, bayonets, and bare hands. The Marines are waiting with machine guns, shotguns, and entrenching tools. By dawn, the island is silent except for the wind. Of the 22,060 Japanese who defended Iwo Jima, 21,844 are dead. Most of the 216 taken prisoner are unconscious or too wounded to resist. Only a handful, men like Lieutenant Mamoru Shigemitsu, live to tell the story. Years later, those survivors will sit in quiet rooms in Tokyo or Osaka and still wake up screaming from dreams of green demons crawling through fire-lit tunnels, calling to each other in calm voices while the world burns around them. They never hated the American Army. The Army fought like soldiers. They never hated the Navy flyers. They fought from the sky. But the Marines came into the earth with them. They looked into their eyes in the dark and refused to blink. And in the end, that was the thing no amount of Bushido could withstand. 79 years later, a handful of them are still alive. Old men now. They don't talk about medals. They talk about the friends they carried off that black sand. If this video made you feel even 1% of what they felt, honor them the only way we still can. Smash that like button. Share this with one person who needs to know what real sacrifice looks like. And subscribe because their stories aren't done being told. In the comments, just leave their names, the ones who never came home. I'll pin the first 10 because some flags still need raising. Semper Fi. See you on the next beach.